Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Unitarian Congregation of Men in Uxbridge with Reverend Patricia. My name is Matthew Merriam, and today I'm going to be starting off our service with a very popular song. This will be American Pie by John McLean.
Welcome again to the Unitarian Congregation of Men in Uxbridge. It's so good to be with all of you here today, those who are able to make it in person and those who are viewing online, whether it's right now live or later in the week. Welcome to this time of worship together. Opening words are adapted by Elizabeth Parrish. Come, you all, into this house of worship. Come and find peace and rest. Come and find inspiration and aspiration, fellowship and love. Come in and find light for your darkness, a friend's touch for your loneliness, and music for your soul. Come in and let your heart sing for all the blessings that are yours this day. And the chalice lighting words by Marjorie Montgomery. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. Please join me in saying the unison affirmation of this congregation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Typically in a service, we would have candles of joy and concern at this time. However, to give folks online a chance to write in any joys or concerns, we will have those later in the service. And I will light candles for those things that are sent in via the online chat or the contact form on the webpage. Those who are here in person will be invited to come up and light their own candle. Please join me in our opening hymn, number 12, O Life That Maketh All Things New. You may rise and bow to your spirit as we sing together. Somebody something important. Today's story is called Geronimo Grubb, and it was adapted from a retelling by Pat Wynne Jones. I found it in Margaret Silk's book, 100 Wisdom Tales from Around the World. I wonder where the old frog goes, Geronimo the Grubb pondered. Where does the old frog go? Geronimo the Grubb realized that the frog would swim to the top of the pond and disappear from sight until, plop, there she is again. It's a mystery. Why don't you ask her yourself, suggested a minnow. And so Geronimo summoned up all his courage. Madam Frog, he began politely, if I may, there is something I would like to ask you. I don't, please, replied the frog, but ask anyway, if you must. Well, Madam Frog, Geronimo said very shyly, can you tell me what there is beyond this world? Well, I'll tell you, replied the frog. There is dry land with green grass and meadows filled with buttercups and sweet white daisies. And there are blue skies and dreamy white clouds and brilliant, bright sunshine. Wow, said Geronimo. He could not imagine a world beyond the dark pond waters. Dry land, he repeated. Can you swim in this dry land? You are the most inquisitive creature I have ever met. Since you're so eager to find out what lies above, I'll give you a ride up on my back, and you can see for yourself, the frog kindly offered. Geronimo gleefully climbed onto the frog's back, and up they went. But the moment they reached the surface, crash! He reeled back into the pond, gasping for breath, as he was a grub. Geronimo clung to the stem of a water plant, trembling with shock and disappointment, until the frog came back to join him. There is nothing beyond this pond but death, he wept. Why did you tell me all those stories about beautiful colors and bright light? I told you those stories because they are true. You only know this little pond, and so you will not believe that there is anything beyond it. And the frog swam away. Now Geronimo didn't know what to believe. However, as the days grew warmer, Geronimo began to feel strange. His eyes became large and brilliant, and some extraordinary force seemed to be urging him upwards, upwards. He couldn't resist this force and began struggling slowly up a bulrush stem toward the surface. His grub siblings gathered around anxiously and said, "Don't leave us." They begged him to stay, but he said, "I must go," as he gasped. "Then promise you will come back and tell us what lies beyond. Don't forget us," they implored. "Never," Geronimo said firmly. "I will never forget you. I will return and tell you what I have seen." And then he was gone. His siblings waited for days, but he never came back. At last they gave up any hope of ever seeing him again. "He has forgotten us," they said bitterly. Geronimo had not forgotten his siblings, but he could not return to them. He had become a dazzling dragonfly. That's why he couldn't return. He had risen with glittering wings up into the sunshine. He could no longer live as a grub. Now he needed to fly. He could fly over the green meadows with the golden buttercup and the sweet white daisy. He could soar into the blue skies. No, Geronimo did not forget his siblings. He thought of them often, but he knew with confidence one day they too would leave the pond, and then they would fly free together. It is now time for the offering. The offertory will be announced by our musician, Matt, and I will say words by Michael Hall, who used to have a connection to this church, I think as a student minister. Actually, I went to seminary with Michael. "It is time for our offering. Give what you will. For the church that has meant so much to you, for the church that meant so much to those who came before you, and for the church that will mean so much to people you will never know. Give what you will, for you are a generous people." Thank you all for your gifts of time, talent, treasure, gifts of your heart. The offering will now be received.
"You Make Me Feel So Young" by Joseph Meyer.
We'll have 3 cards. I have words I will share from Samuel A. Trumpor. And then I will play my singing bowl. After that, we will hear Spirit of Life. Let's begin by taking a few deep breaths and sentences. Let us turn inward now. Feel the rhythm of your breath in and out, in and out. Find the peace of just being with the flow of your breath. Letting go of yesterday and tomorrow. Feel the restorative power of the peace of this moment. A peace large enough to open to the concerns and sorrows that trouble us. We can acknowledge them and let them go as we focus on our breath in this present moment. Let us experience a stillness, quiet enough to respond to the joys and celebrations that enliven us. Acknowledging these, we can also go back to our breath here in the present moment. In and out. There is safety here in the rhythm of the breath. The ebb and flow of life is active with each breath. Taking in oxygen sustenance, letting go of carbon dioxide waste. Letting go of the residue that wants to cling to us. We breathe in peace. We breathe out stress and distress. Let us cultivate inner peace and inner safety in this sanctuary, right here, right now. Peace in this sanctuary that is dedicated to cultivating the spirit of life, dedicated to being a beacon of love for all beings. These words were adapted. Let us continue in the spirit of peace as we hear the sound of the singing bowl. I might step out of the frame for a moment so I can play it closer to the people who are present. But the sound will continue. And let the breathing of our peace, of our awareness of the present moment, continue as we hear the sound of the singing bowl. theologian and civil rights activist. And here is the reading that I want to share from Howard Thurman. Look well to the growing edge. All around us, worlds are dying and new worlds are being born. All around us, life is dying and life is being born. The fruit ripens on the tree. The roots are silently at work in the darkness against the earth, in the darkness against a time when there will be new leaves, fresh blossoms, green fruit. Such is the growing edge. The growing edge is the extra breath from the exhausted lung. The one more thing to try when all else has failed. The upward reach of life when weariness closes in upon all endeavor. This is the basis of hope in despair. The incentive to carry on when times are out of joint and when people have lost their reason. The source of confidence when worlds crash and dreams whiten into ash. The birth of the child, life's most dramatic answer to death. This is the growing edge incarnate. Look well to the growing edge. Look well to the growing edge. And today's sermon is called Growth at the Edges. Did you ever try to find the gold at the end of the rainbow? As it seems that you should be getting closer to the end of the rainbow, it always appears further in the distance. We are constantly being challenged by the edges of our experience. We are confronted by things we don't know and by situations we've never encountered before. These unknown and unfamiliar things are precisely the area where growth happens. As individuals and as communities, we grow whenever we cross the edges of our comfort zones. All new ventures, all inventions and innovations, all choices to take different paths in life are about crossing the edges of the known into the unknown. Anxiety often comes along for the ride when one ventures into the unknown, as we can't see the end from the beginning. We can acknowledge that we're a bit anxious about the new situation. However, that doesn't need to stop us from moving forward. We can remind ourselves that no one ever knows the end from the beginning. We can take the steps that we can do that day and have faith that other days will take care of themselves. Growth edges could be goals that we want to achieve, or they could be things that we need to work on in our lives. When I started on my path to professional ministry, I had no idea how I could do all the necessary steps. How could I go to seminary while working and taking care of my children? How could I afford it? How could I also do a long ministerial internship at a UU church, as well as a chaplain internship at a hospital? How would all these pieces fit together, and where would the money come from? One day, I even wrote down all the requirements and challenges, and then I cut them up like pieces of a puzzle and rearranged them to see how they might fit together. Without knowing it, I was actually extending my mind power by doing that, as you will hear more about later in the sermon. Anyhow, I just took one step at a time. My first semester at seminary, I just took one course. My second semester, I took 2 courses. I kept on one semester at a time until 5 years later, I graduated with my Master of Divinity degree. What are your goals? What goals are you already pursuing? What goals do you want to pursue but that you haven't started yet? What is the growing edges. Growing edges could be things that frighten us, or that we procrastinate about simply because we think they are hard. There may be ways we know we could do better, but we haven't actually made much progress. Growing edges could be about our own peace and well-being, or about building better relationships with others, or better habits in our lives. Maybe we need to add something to our lives, like a spiritual practice, or lessen something in our lives, perhaps like the amount of time spent online or watching the news. What is something that would bring more peace and balance to your life? What is something that is a growing edge for you? It is important to embrace our growing edges. If we don't acknowledge and accept them, then we'll never make any progress. Also, we need a kind of humility to know that we can always improve and always want to improve in ways that are possible. And at some point, we need to accept that we are finite creatures. And we can accept that and love ourselves in our magnificence and in our finitude. Knowledge of our edges is a catalyst for growth and a great way to make progress, to extend our resources. One way we can extend our resources is by extending the power of our mind. Philosophers Andy Clark and David Chalmers believe that the mind extends beyond the edges of the brain and extends out into the world with resources located in other places. Instead of doing so much only in our heads, we can find ways to shift mental work onto the world around us and to supplement our limited neural resources. Scientist and author Annie Murphy Paul suggests 4 ways we can do this. The first way is perhaps the most obvious. Technology helps us both unburden our minds and augment our brain's capacities. Who remembers phone numbers anymore? Our bodies are another resource. Studies show that the body's sensations, gestures, and movements play an integral role in our knowledge. A shiver, a sigh, a quickening of the breath, or a tensing of the muscles may alert us to something that we need to be more aware of, something that our brain hasn't even processed and acknowledged yet. So simply by paying attention to our body's movements and gestures and sensations is another way we can extend the power of our mind. The body is also capable of grounding abstract concepts in concrete terms that the brain can understand. Physics students understand concepts much better by experiencing the concept that they're learning about with physical objects, manipulating them, moving them, and feeling the forces, feeling how the physics concepts work. They understand these concepts much better than simply if they just read about them or listened to lectures about them. Another extra neural resource we can use is physical space. Instead of just thinking about something, if we can draw it, we may gain a deeper understanding. Thus, I was accessing more understanding when I drew and cut up and rearranged all the pieces of my vision ministry training. Additionally, if we make a 3D model of something, we can activate our spatial abilities that have evolved for ages in order to help us make sense of the world. So we can offload some of this mental processing by doing something physical, even if it's just drawing a picture of what we're thinking of. Finally, another very important way we can augment our minds is when we think together with others. We are social beings. We actually think better with others. And the minds of other people can also supplement our limited individual memory. Collective remembering can multiply the amount of information that we have access to. All 4 of these extra neural resources technology, the body, physical space, social interaction can be understood as mental extensions that allow the brain to accomplish far more than it could on its own. We get better results when we extend our resources and work together. In fact, a kind of magic happens when communities of all sorts come together. Ecotones are places where two different ecosystems merge, such as wetlands. The populations and resources of the land and the water join together at these wetland borderlands. There is great diversity and exchange, and some fascinating species only exist in ecotones, these merged communities. They only exist in ecotones like Venus flytraps and pitcher plants. They're amazing places, these borderlands, these ecotones, where two bio-communities come together. And yet, all this biodiversity comes together, but ecotones develop their own unique identity. Growth and transformation also happen when people and societies come together from different cultures and places. In the cultural world, ports of trade and great trade routes have been situated at the edges of civilizations. They also have been places of great diversity and rich cultural and intellectual exchange, as well as the exchange of goods. Organizations that bring diverse populations together can be tremendously effective, such as Kids for Peace, which brings Jewish, Christian, and Muslim youth together for relationship and leadership in peace building. Communities coming together provides fertile ground, both literally and metaphorically. Relationships are built, ideas and support are shared, transformation and innovation can happen. People flourish when they think and work together. We have a wonderful opportunity at the Unitarian Congregation of Mendon, Uxbridge at the start of this new church year. We get to meet with people and share with them and worship with them, who we have things in common with and who are different from us. We can appreciate the commonalities and learn from the differences, and we're all the better for it. We can tap into the resources of everyone to help this community flourish even more, like we did at the Strawberry Festival in June. I am excited for this new church year, what ways we can grow, and what we can do together. I am also excited that we are partnering with the Hopedale Unitarian Parish, 2 miles down the road, as I think this relationship will be good for both communities, and we will inspire one another and grow in ways we don't even know yet. Our own little Unitarian ecotone, perhaps. And I'll close with this poem by Laura Martin. I'm going to read this twice so we can really take it in. By Laura Martin. What is sky and what is sea? Is the moon coming or going? What questions do you ask? And what questions do you leave unspoken? Gaze not too far ahead as you walk, which is why we pray, give us this day our daily bread. Know that you will be offered work that is not yours to do. Know that you will carry something heavy because you must. Travel, though you don't have all the answers. Let yourself navigate by stars you cannot name, but trust. Find the horizon within, and see that sea or sky, you are held in grace, even if grace is beyond your comprehension. What is sky and what is sea? Is the moon coming or going? What questions do you ask? And what questions do you leave unspoken? Gaze not too far ahead as you walk, which is why we pray, give us this day our daily bread. Know that you will be offered work that is not yours to do. Know that you will carry something heavy because you must. Travel, though you don't have all the answers. Let yourself navigate by the stars that you cannot name, but trust and find the horizon within, and see that sky or sea, you are held in grace, even if grace is beyond your comprehension. May we truly understand that we are held in grace, and may we navigate together by the stars above and by the compasses in our hearts. Amen. Bless you. Now time for announcements. I just have two today. We are still collecting donations for the Milford Community Meals Program. They especially like bottles of water, cans of pasta, and chili, things like that, breakfast foods. So you can put them in the box in the entryway between the sanctuary and Dock Hall, or you could even leave them outside the door. Whoever comes into the building can bring them in. It's a great cooperative effort among several churches in the greater Milford area. So, thank you for those who donate. And the other announcement I have is that next week we will have our in-gathering service. So hopefully more folks can attend. I know this is a holiday weekend, this weekend. We will have a modified water communion.